Welcome back, beautiful souls, and thank you so much for being here, and for all your love and support. It truly means the world. Tonight's story will touch your heart in ways you don't expect. After losing his wife, Thomas, a young doctor, moves with his daughter to Lake Michigan, only to meet Martha, a woman 20 years older, who looks just like the wife he lost. Is it fate or a second chance at love? Sit back, relax, and let's dive into their unforgettable journey. The drive out of Chicago stretched longer than Thomas Smith had expected. He welcomed it. Every mile that pulled him farther away from the city, away from the echoes of memories he couldn't silence, felt like a small step toward healing. The city carried ghosts, his wife's laughter in the hallways of their old apartment, her soft voice reading bedtime stories to their daughter, her hand that used to rest in his when they walked through Lincoln Park on Sundays. All of it was gone now. Beside him in the passenger seat, 12-year-old Paris pressed her forehead against the car window, her brown curls bouncing slightly with every bump in the road. She hadn't spoken much since they left, only the occasional hum when he asked if she was hungry or if she needed to stretch. She was her mother's daughter, quiet strength, thoughtful eyes and a heart too big for her small frame. Almost there, Thomas said, though he wasn't entirely sure how far there really was. He had booked a lakefront home in Michigan for the summer, desperate for new air, new skies, new space to breathe. Paris turned toward him, her voice soft. "Do you think we'll like it?" Thomas glanced at her, his chest tightening. She was only 12, but grief had aged her. "We'll try," he said. "That's all we can do right now." The road curved, and then suddenly, the vast blue of Lake Michigan spread before them, stretching to the horizon. Sunlight shimmered across its surface, and Thomas felt for the first time in months a flicker of something like hope. The house was charming in its quiet simplicity. White two-story cottage with blue shutters, sitting at the edge of the lake. The front garden overflowed with daisies and lavender, their fragrance drifting in the warm summer air. Paris's eyes lit up the moment she stepped out of the car. "Dad, it smells like Mom's lotion," she whispered, bending to touch the flowers. Thomas swallowed hard. He didn't want to dampen her joy with his own grief. "It does, doesn't it?" He was unloading their suitcases when the sound of footsteps on gravel drew his attention. A woman emerged from the side of the house carrying a watering can. She was tall, elegant in a quiet way, her skin a rich, warm brown touched with the sun, her salt and pepper curls tied back in a scarf. Lines of experience traced her face, but they only deepened the strength in her expression. Thomas froze. His heart stumbled in his chest. For a second, just one suspended heartbeat, he thought he was seeing his wife again. "Martha Wallace," the woman said, setting the watering can down. Her voice was low, gentle, carrying the kind of calm that could steady a storm. "You must be Dr. Smith. Welcome to the lake house." Thomas's throat went dry. His wife's voice had been softer, higher, but the resemblance in her features was undeniable. The curve of her jaw, the set of her eyes, the way her smile, brief and polite, could almost mirror the smile he had kissed 1,000 times before. Paris stepped out from behind him, and her small gasp broke the silence. "Dad," she whispered. "She looks like Mom." Martha's brows lifted slightly, confusion flickering across her face. Thomas gently squeezed his daughter's shoulder, but he couldn't deny the truth that had shaken both of them. "I thank you for having us," Thomas managed, forcing composure. Martha gave a kind nod. "It's a quiet place. Good for families who need peace." Her gaze lingered on Paris, reading more than was spoken. She seemed to understand grief without asking for details. "Let me show you inside." The house smelled faintly of cedar and lavender. Martha walked them through, pointing out the kitchen, the wide windows that opened toward the lake, the guest rooms upstairs. Her presence filled the space, steady and grounding, and Thomas found himself watching her too closely. The way her hands smoothed the edge of a curtain, the way her voice softened when she spoke to Paris. At the end of the tour, Martha turned to him. "I'll leave you to settle in. If you need anything, I live just across the garden in the smaller house. You can knock any time." Thomas nodded, grateful, though his thoughts tangled. She was not his wife. She couldn't be. And yet the resemblance haunted him, stirring emotions he thought he'd buried. As the door closed behind her, Paris turned to him, her eyes wide. "Dad, it's like Mom came back. Just older." The words sliced through him. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "I know, sweetheart, but remember, she's not your mom. She's someone new, someone different." Paris leaned against him. "But she made me feel safe, just like Mom used to." Thomas kissed the top of her head, his heart aching. Then maybe being here will help us both. The days that followed unfolded gently, almost deceptively normal. Mornings were filled with the sound of gulls and the shimmer of light across the lake. Paris collected shells along the shore whilst Thomas tried to read medical journals he couldn't focus on. And then there were the moments when Martha appeared, watering her flowers, hanging laundry in the sunlight, humming softly to herself. Each time Thomas felt that same jolt, that same pull. He tried to tell himself it was grief, the tricks memory played on the heart. But it was more than resemblance. One afternoon, Paris and Martha sat together on the porch steps, Paris giggling as Martha taught her how to weave flower crowns from daisies. Thomas watched from the doorway, his chest tightening with something he couldn't yet name. Martha looked up and caught his gaze. For a moment their eyes locked, and Thomas felt seen, truly seen, for the first time since his wife's death. Later, when Paris went to bed, Thomas found himself lingering outside, the night air cool against his skin. Martha was watering her garden by moonlight, her scarf loose around her shoulders. "You should rest," Thomas said softly, approaching. She glanced at him, smiling faintly. "And you should stop carrying the world on your shoulders." The words startled him with their accuracy. He chuckled quietly. "I guess I'm obvious." "You are," Martha said gently. Then, after a pause, she added, "Your daughter mentioned I remind her of her mother." Thomas inhaled sharply. He hadn't expected her to bring it up. "I'm sorry if that made you uncomfortable. It's just—" She sees things. And truthfully, so do I. Martha set the watering can down, her expression soft but firm. "Thomas, I am not your wife. I can't be her. And no one can replace her." Her words struck deep, but instead of pushing him away, they ignited something inside him. He stepped closer, his voice low, raw with honesty. "I know you're not her, but that doesn't mean I can't see you. Doesn't mean I can't want to know you." Martha shook her head, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of something, fear maybe, or longing. "You're too young, and I've lived enough years to know better than to mistake grief for love." Thomas's heart pounded. Maybe grief opened my eyes, but what I feel when I look at you, it's real. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken truths. Finally, Martha whispered, "Don't chase shadows, Thomas." But even as she turned back to her flowers, Thomas knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let her go. That night, lying awake in the unfamiliar bed, Thomas stared at the ceiling, Martha's words echoing in his mind. "I can't be her. No one can replace her." He knew she was right. He wasn't looking for a replacement. He was looking for something he hadn't thought possible. Life after loss, love after heartbreak. And for reasons he couldn't fully explain, Martha Wallace felt like the answer. The days at Lake Michigan unfolded with a strange rhythm, peaceful on the surface, but heavy with undercurrents Thomas couldn't ignore. Every time Martha passed by, whether she was trimming her roses or walking along the pier with a basket of laundry, he felt pulled toward her like the tide to the shore. Yet Martha remained a wall of quiet dignity. She smiled politely, exchanged small pleasantries, but never let him too close. It only fueled his resolve. One morning, Thomas found her in the garden, kneeling among the lavender. Dew clung to the petals, glistening in the early light. He leaned on the wooden fence, watching for a moment before speaking. "You know," he said gently, "you make this garden come alive. I've never seen flowers so loved." Martha looked up, raising an amused brow. "It's called watering and weeding, Doctor. Nothing magical about it." Still, Thomas pressed with a soft smile, "I think it's you. You breathe life into everything around you." She shook her head, though her lips curved despite herself. "You have a way with words." He stepped closer. "That's because every time I look at you, Martha, words come without effort." Her smile faltered, and she lowered her gaze back to the lavender. "Don't, Thomas, please, don't what? Don't look at me like I'm someone I'm not." He crouched beside her, close enough to catch the faint scent of lavender clinging to her skin. "I'm not seeing someone else. I'm seeing you, and I like what I see more than I can explain." Her hands stilled in the soil. "So I'm 55 years old," she whispered, her voice thick. "I've lived more years than you. I have lines, wrinkles, stories etched into me you don't want to carry." Thomas's heart clenched. He reached gently, brushing dirt from her fingers. "I love every line, every story written on your skin. They make you more beautiful, not less." Her eyes flicked to his, wide and searching, as if afraid to believe. In the evenings their paths crossed more often. Paris adored Martha, insisting they invite her for dinner. Martha would laugh softly, saying, "Oh no, I couldn't," but eventually found herself at their table more than once. One night, after Paris went upstairs to bed, Thomas lingered with Martha in the kitchen. The dishes were washed. The room smelled of garlic and rosemary from the roast chicken they'd shared. "Do you always work this hard to keep people away?" Thomas asked, leaning against the counter. Martha's eyes lifted to his, wary. "It's not about keeping people away. It's about keeping them safe. Especially men like you. Men like me," he echoed with a small smile. "Young, handsome, with your whole life ahead of you." Her voice trembled, though she tried to steady it. "I don't want to be someone's charity case. Or a replacement. Or worse, a regret." Thomas pushed away from the counter, stepping closer. His voice dropped to a low, steady tone. "You'd never be a regret. And you're not charity. You're a gift, Martha. Every second I spend with you feels like light in a place I thought would stay dark forever." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Good," he said softly, "because nothing worth it is ever easy." For a moment she let him hold her gaze. Something in her eyes, loneliness, longing, betrayed her defenses. But then she pulled back, gathering her shawl. "Good night, Thomas." And she was gone. Weeks slipped by, filled with stolen conversations, gentle persistence and Martha's quiet resistance, until the day everything changed. It was a Saturday afternoon when Paris came running, her voice panicked. "Dad, it's Miss Martha." Thomas dropped the book in his lap and sprinted across the garden. Martha was crumpled on the porch steps of her cottage, her face pale, her breathing shallow. "Martha." He knelt beside her, his doctor's instincts kicking in, but his heart pounding with fear. "Stay with me, look at me." Her lips moved weakly. "I'm fine. It's nothing." "It's not nothing," he snapped gently, lifting her against him. "We're going to the hospital now." Hours later, fluorescent lights hummed above them as Thomas sat by her hospital bed. Paris slept curled in a chair, exhausted from worry. Martha's voice was faint. "You shouldn't be here. Where else would I be?" Thomas said firmly, gripping her hand. She closed her eyes. "The tests. They'll tell you anyway. My kidneys. They're failing. I've known for a while. I didn't want anyone to know." Thomas's chest tightened. He forced his voice to stay calm. "What do you need? Dialysis? A transplant?" Her eyes brimmed with tears. "A transplant. But the list is long. Too long, I might not." Her voice broke. Thomas pressed her hand to his chest, his own eyes burning. "Then take mine." Her head jerked up, shock flashing in her gaze. "Thomas, no." "Yes," he said fiercely. "So I couldn't save my wife, Martha. But I can save you, please, don't tell me no." Her tears slid silently down her cheeks. "Why would you do this for me?" His voice cracked as he whispered, "Because I love you. Because I can't imagine losing you too. Because you matter more to me than my own life." Martha sobbed softly, turning her face away. "Thomas, I'm too old for you. Too old to be loved like that. All I want now is to live the years I have left quietly in peace. Not tangled in something that can't last." He leaned closer, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Peace without love isn't living, Martha. It's just surviving. And I don't want to survive. I want to live with you." Her hand trembled in his, torn between fear and longing. The following week was a blur of hospital visits, tests, and long nights. Thomas never left her side. He brought Paris's drawings to brighten her room, read aloud from books, whispered words of hope when she cried in the dark. "You're my anchor," she whispered once, her voice breaking. "You hold me when I can't stand. But anchors drown too, Thomas. What if I drag you down with me?" He kissed her hand softly. "Then I'll sink with you. But I'll never let you drown alone." Martha turned her face to the wall, tears spilling. For the first time in years, she let herself believe in the impossible. Love even here, even now. By the end of summer, Thomas knew one thing with certainty. Martha could run. She could push him away, but he would not give up. Because every time he looked at her, every time she whispered she was too old, too broken, he saw the truth burning beneath her words. She wanted to be loved. She just didn't believe she deserved it. And Thomas was determined to prove she did. The hospital stay ended. But the storm inside Martha's heart raged even harder once she returned home. She moved slower now, her strength thinner, but her pride stood taller than ever. Each time Thomas showed up at her porch with groceries, or Paris skipped through the garden to sit with her, she felt her walls bending under the weight of something terrifying. Hope. And hope was dangerous. One Sunday afternoon, Martha sat on the porch swing with a cup of tea. Her friend Evelyn stopped by, a woman her age with sharp eyes and sharper words. I hear that young doctor has been hovering around you again, Evelyn said, settling into the chair beside her. Martha sighed, trying to sound nonchalant. He's just helping. He's kind. Evelyn gave her a long look. Martha Wallace, don't be foolish. That man is 20 years younger than you. People will talk. Let them, Martha said quietly, though her hands tightened around her teacup. Evelyn leaned closer. Talk turns to ridicule. You know how this town is. He'll leave one day, and then where will you be? Alone, embarrassed, and broken again. Don't put yourself through that. The words cut deeper than Martha wanted to admit, because hadn't she thought the same thing 100 times in the quiet of night? That she was setting herself up for heartbreak, for laughter behind her back? She forced a smile. You're right, Evelyn. I need peace, not complications. But her heart ached as she said it. Later that week, Martha went into town for groceries. She walked past a group of young women outside the cafe, their laughter carrying across the sidewalk. Can you believe it? One of them whispered not quietly enough. That old woman and the doctor, as if she has a chance. Please, another giggled. Wrinkles and stretch marks. He could have anyone he wants. Their laughter stung, slicing through Martha like glass. She kept her head high, but tears burnt her eyes all the way home. That night, when Thomas came by with fresh bread from the bakery, she avoided him. She pretended she was too tired, that she needed to rest. He saw through it but said nothing. He only left the bread on the porch, with a note tucked inside. You are the most beautiful woman I have ever known. T. Paris, however, wasn't so easily avoided. One evening, she slipped into Martha's house without knocking, holding a drawing in her hands. It was a crayon picture of the three of them, Martha in the middle, Thomas on one side, Paris on the other, all holding hands by the lake. Do you like it? Paris asked shyly. Martha's heart squeezed. Oh, sweetheart. It's beautiful. Paris looked up, her young eyes far too wise. I miss my mom every day, but when I'm with you, it's like... The hole in my heart isn't so big. You make me feel safe again, like she used to. Martha swallowed hard, tears threatening. Paris, I'm not your mom. I know, Paris whispered, her voice breaking. But can't you be my second mom, please? I just want my dad to smile again. I just want us to be happy. The little girl's arms wrapped around Martha's waist, holding tight. Martha held her back, her tears spilling freely now. Sweetheart, she choked out. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do, Paris said, pulling back to look at her. Don't push him away. Don't push me away. We need you. Martha sat in silence long after Paris left, clutching the crayon drawing like a fragile piece of her own heart. That same night, Thomas came to her door. She almost didn't let him in, but something in his eyes, tired, aching, yet still filled with unwavering love, broke her. He sat across from her at the small kitchen table, the lamp casting shadows on his face. What are you afraid of, Martha? He asked softly. She closed her eyes. Everything, tell me. Her voice trembled. I'm afraid you'll wake up one day and realize you deserve someone younger, prettier. I'm afraid of people laughing behind our backs. I'm afraid you'll leave me when I finally let myself love again. I'm afraid I'll ruin you. Thomas leaned forward, his hand covering hers. Listen to me. You think you're too old to love or be loved, but you're not. Martha, I don't want someone younger. I don't want perfect skin or a body untouched by time. I want you. Every wrinkle, every scar, every stretch mark you're ashamed of. I love them. I love you. Her tears spilled as she shook her head. You don't know what it's like to live in a body that's tired, to see yourself fade while the world stays young. I just want to live my remaining years in peace, Thomas. Not in the storm of love that will end with me alone again. His eyes burned with intensity, his voice breaking. Peace isn't living, Martha. It's hiding, and I won't let you hide from me. I couldn't save my wife, but I can love you with everything I have left. Please, don't shut me out. She sobbed openly then, torn between longing and fear. Thomas reached across the table, pulling her hand to his lips. I'll never stop fighting for you. Not until you believe you're worth being loved. Because you are, more than you know. That night, Martha lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every cruel word from her friends, every mocking laugh from strangers echoed in her mind. But so did Paris's plea, soft and desperate. Please be my second mom. And Thomas's voice, steady and unshakable. I love every wrinkle, every scar, every stretch mark. Please, I love every bit of you. Her heart ached with a truth she could no longer deny. She loved him. She had tried to bury it, to starve it, to strangle it beneath fear and shame. But love had bloomed anyway. Fierce, wild, impossible. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop running. The days after Martha's confession were quiet, but not with avoidance this time. It was the quiet of something waiting to be born. Thomas gave her space, though his presence never wavered. Every morning he brought her tea. Every evening he checked on her, even if only to leave a light at her door so she wouldn't feel alone in the dark. Martha carried Paris's crayon drawing everywhere. She kept it folded in her purse, smoothing it out whenever she felt her courage falter, the three of them holding hands, smiling by the lake. That simple child's picture did what years of fear and loneliness could not. It reminded her she was wanted, needed, loved. One evening, as the sky melted into hues of orange and pink, Thomas found her sitting on the pier, her feet dangling just above the water. He approached quietly, but she spoke before he could. "I've been thinking about what you said," she whispered, eyes fixed on the horizon. Thomas lowered himself beside her, careful not to break the fragile moment. "Which part? That you love every wrinkle, every scar, every bit of me." Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to continue. "I've spent years believing those things made me less, believing no man could look at me and see beauty. And yet, when you say it, I want to believe you." He turned toward her, his voice soft but sure. "Don't want to, do." She met his eyes then, and in them she saw not pity, not charity, but raw devotion. Her defenses crumbled and tears spilled freely. "I'm so afraid, Thomas, afraid of being abandoned, afraid of giving you my heart only to watch you walk away." Thomas reached for her hands, pulling them gently into his lap. "Martha, I lost my wife to death. Nothing on this earth could make me walk away from the woman. I choose to love again, nothing. I am here, with you, for as long as you'll let me." Her sob broke into laughter, shaky and full of release. "You're relentless." "I have to be," he murmured. "'Cause you're worth the fight." She leaned forward then, closing the space between them. Their lips met softly at first, tentative, like two souls asking permission to heal together. But then Thomas deepened the kiss, his hand cupping her face, and Martha felt years of loneliness dissolve into that single touch. When they pulled apart, her forehead rested against his. "I love you," she whispered, the words fragile but true. "I don't know how it happened, but I do." Thomas's eyes shone with tears. "I've been waiting to hear that. Martha Wallace, you've just given me back my life." Her health, however, remained a storm they couldn't ignore. The transplant needed to happen soon. Tests confirmed Thomas was a match, and though Martha resisted at first, terrified of putting his life at risk, his resolve never wavered. "I couldn't save my wife," he told her one night in the hospital, his hand clasping hers. "But I can save you. Please let me try," she cried, shaking her head. "I can't let you sacrifice yourself for me." "It's not a sacrifice," he whispered. "It's a gift. The only thing worse than losing you would be knowing. I had a chance to help and didn't take it." In the end, she relented, not because her fear disappeared, but because she finally believed in the depth of his love. The day of the surgery, Paris sat in the waiting room clutching Martha's crayon drawing. She refused to let it out of her hands. Hours stretched painfully, but finally the doctor emerged with a tired smile. "Both patients are stable," he announced. The transplant was successful. Paris burst into tears, hugging the picture tightly. "Thank you, God," she whispered. Recovery was slow, but it brought them closer than ever. Thomas, still healing from his own surgery, insisted on helping Martha walk, his arm always ready to steady her. She teased him once, saying, "You're supposed to be resting." And he answered with a grin, "Resting is boring. Loving you isn't." At night, when pain made it hard for her to sleep, he sat beside her bed, telling her stories about his years in medical school, about Paris's first steps, about the silly arguments he and his wife used to have. He never compared them, never blurred the line between past and present. Instead, he built a new story with Martha, one tender word at a time. "You're my anchor," she whispered once through tears. "And you," he answered, kissing her hand, "are my home." By autumn, their strength returned. One golden afternoon, Thomas took Martha to the very pier where she had first confessed her fears. The lake sparkled under the sun, the breeze carrying the scent of lavender from her garden. He knelt before her, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Martha Wallace," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "You told me once you were too old to be loved. But here you are, the love of my life, proving every doubt wrong. I don't want to just be your doctor, your friend, or your tenant. I want to be your husband. Will you marry me?" Martha gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Tears spilled instantly as her knees trembled. "Thomas, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious," he said, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. "Marry me, Martha. Let me love you for the rest of our days." Her sob broke into laughter, pure and unguarded. She nodded through tears. "Yes, oh Thomas, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and Paris, who had been hiding behind the lilac bushes, came running with a scream of joy. She said yes. She said yes. Thomas lifted Martha into his arms, careful but strong, spinning her once as Paris clapped and laughed. It was the kind of moment that erased every shadow of doubt, every whispered cruelty from strangers. Their wedding was small but filled with light. On a crisp afternoon by Lake Michigan, under an arch of lavender and daisies, Thomas and Martha exchanged vows. Paris stood proudly between them, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I never thought I'd have another mom," Paris whispered into Martha's embrace. "Thank you for saying yes." Martha's tears mingled with hers. "Thank you for letting me love you." When Thomas kissed his bride, the world seemed to pause. It wasn't a kiss of desperation, or even of victory. It was a kiss of peace, of a man and woman who had found life again where they least expected it. Married life unfolded with the kind of tenderness Martha once thought belonged only to the young. Thomas danced with her in the kitchen while dinner simmered. He left love notes tucked into her books, her garden gloves, her teacups. Every time she caught her reflection in the mirror and saw the lines of age, he would wrap his arms around her from behind and whisper, "Beautiful." And every night, Paris's laughter filled their home, proof that healing had come full circle. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the lake shimmer beneath the stars, Martha rested her head against Thomas's shoulder. "I wasted so many years thinking I was too old to love, too old to be loved." Thomas kissed the top of her head. "You weren't too old. You were just waiting for me." Her eyes glistened with tears. "And you've made me believe in forever again." Paris came running out, her curls bouncing, holding another crayon drawing, this time of the three of them beneath the words, "My family forever." Martha smiled through her tears, pulling Paris close, her other hand wrapped tightly in Thomas's. For the first time in years, she no longer feared what the world might say. She had love, she had family, she had peace. And it was enough. Years passed, and the lakeside house remained filled with laughter, love and warmth. Thomas and Martha grew older together, their bond deepening with each passing day. Paris flourished, feeling the love of both a father and a mother she had chosen in her heart. Martha often smiled at her reflection now, seeing not age or lines, but a life fully lived and fully loved. And Thomas, ever devoted, never let a day go by without reminding her she was his greatest gift. Love, they had learned, didn't follow rules. It simply found those brave enough to open their hearts. And that was the journey of Thomas, Martha, and little Paris, a story of love that proved age, fear, and doubt could never silence the heart. Sometimes the most beautiful chapters in life come when we least expect them, and this was one of them. Thank you so much for listening. Your time and support mean everything. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional tales. Until next time, keep believing in love and may love guide your heart. Vintage Mike Tales.